Man, if any of you are here from my last Shapera video and remember how I was talking about my understanding of the layers of the metaverse, yeah, you can just chuck all of that out the window because Paul's last album just confirmed that I was completely wrong about all of it. Hello, and welcome back to my channel where I make art and I talk about things. I'm Asher, and we are finally getting back to the Shaperaverse. Hell yes. For this video, I'm going to be looking at the New Albion Radio Hour, a Dieselpunk opera, sequel to the steampunk opera Dolls of New Albion, which I have already done a video for some time ago. Wait, how long ago was that? Wow, it really has been almost exactly a year since I made that thing. I honestly thought it was longer. If you want to watch that one first, there is a link in the description below. I will say the video is quite different from what I'm doing now, and I suspect that they're just going to keep being different as time goes on. And I wouldn't say it's required to watch before you watch this one. One of the things about Shapera's work and these musicals is that each one is a contained narrative with connections to each other, and a much looser overarching narrative weaved in between them, meaning that you can engage with them individually or as one big story. Kind of like how the MCU works or used to work. I haven't been keeping up with the MCU for a while. I will also say that the aspects that are connected, I will make sure to mention and explain as best as I can. Now, this video has already taken twice as long to make as I wanted it to. I think I made a mistake in the format I chose, which you will see in a minute. And I just wanted to say up front that if you like this video, please engage with it, give it a like, comment, subscribe if you want. More than anything, I'm interested in comments and seeing what people think. I have no doubts that there will be details I miss, and I kind of love seeing different perspectives that people can have on the same piece of work. So, chat with me. I would love to see it. Anyway, with all of that said, let's get straight into it. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about for, I think I might have chosen the wrong format. I decided to make a PowerPoint because for some reason I've been into making PowerPoints. I don't know why. And I think this is why it took me so much longer to make it than I thought it would. That's okay, we're gonna work with it. So, the New Albion Radio Hour, the Dieselpunk opera. It is by Paul Shapera and was released in 2013, almost exactly a year after Dolls came out. Quick overview of Paul's work. These are audio-only stories. They are mostly in the form of musical albums, but there's also a podcast, there's short stories, a few stage productions, including the live show, lots of lore, etc. I say audio only because that's the easiest way to get access to the content itself, and that's what the majority of it is. They're all by Paul Shapera. This one stars the voices of Lauren Osborne, Oliver Marsh, Courtney Ellis, and Shapera himself, all of whom make reappearances in Paul's work. The other thing that's important is that a lot of Paul's stuff takes place or is related to a fictional city called New Albion, arguably the only true main character across the New Albion stories. It is, of course, where Dieselpunk takes place. Dieselpunk is also a sequel to Dolls of New Albion, again, that video I already made, but is also tied closely to the podcast. More on that later. Unlike steampunk, which was split into 4 acts, Dieselpunk is split into 3 acts. You can see all of the songs listed here. Now, Dieselpunk and the podcast are both framed as part of a radio broadcast that exists within the universe of New Albion. It is hosted by Lloyd Allen, who is also our narrator. This is the same frame as the podcast, like I already mentioned, and we will also see this framing device get broken as the story goes on, which is really cool. It's one of my favorite parts of it. Another thing to note about this, though, is that while Lloyd is a person, during both the podcast and this story, and honestly a lot of follow-up stories, he is trapped in a doll, which is essentially just a life-size mannequin, and he kind of looks like this. He's super salty about it and fucking hates it. This detail isn't specified in the musical, but it is canonical. So when does the Dieselpunk era exist in? As I said, New Albion is not set in universe in Earth, but it is Earth adjacent. I talked about this in the Dolls of New Albion with the steampunk era, where that covered 4 generations of the McAllister family and 4 generations of New Albion as it transformed and changed with the McAllisters influencing it. New Albion's timeline is very American history adjacent, but it's not exact, and I would say steampunk covers about the 19th century. Now for the Dieselpunk era, the Dieselpunk genre takes place in the culture of time between World War I, 1914, and up into the 1950s, just traditionally speaking. That's what Dieselpunk generally is. This story takes place during a big war that has been going on for 10 years. We'll get into it later. There's an emphasis on jazz and swing music. It is post Katie Shaw album, which is another album that will come out way later that we'll get to, and specifically takes place in a roaring 20s type setting. And we also have the mention of the Ubermensch and the Super Soldier program. Think Captain America, which again, that takes place in World War II. So I'm really thinking this is like a World War II adjacent setting that we're looking at. Just some examples of other Dieselpunk stuff. There's BioShock 1 and 2, Captain America, First Avenger, and Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. Very good Dieselpunk settings. Now let's look at the main cast of our story. As I mentioned before, we have Lloyd Allen, the narrator, who is trapped in a doll and does not actually look like this, but I'm going to be using his actual human version when referring to him. We've got John O'Brien and his daughter, Constance O'Brien, and can I just talk about how cute she looks for a second? Oh my gosh, I've been working really hard on my art, and obviously I still have a lot to learn, but she came out so good. I love her. There's Jacqueline, or Jackie O'Brien, who is John's sister and Constance's aunt. And then we have Thomas, who's here. We'll get more into him later. Just a little bit of the tree that we're looking at. Like I said, John and Jackie are siblings. John is Constance's father. Constance and Thomas are dating. They are not married, but they're seeing each other, and Lloyd is the narrator. Just the overview. Quick content warning, which usually is more prevalent in Paul's stuff. There's usually a lot of fucked up shit that happens in Paul's stories, but this is probably one of the mildest stories as far as content is concerned. There's like some, I would say, minor drug use, some language, mostly me, I would argue. So, don't worry. Editing Asher here, just stepping in because I got to the end and I realized actually there totally should be a content warning for violence, particularly like gun violence. There's a lot of gun sounds, so if you're sensitive to that, which I have been in the past and I totally understand, just be aware, take care of yourself. Okay, on with the show. Act 1, John O'Brien, the Ubermensch. Starting with the first song, we have the New Albion Radio Hour Overture. Opens with our host, Lloyd Allen, welcoming the listener to the show. It establishes that this is a radio show. It has a very radio-like quality to the sound, to the way that people sound, particularly just when they talk, though, not when they sing, which is interesting. There is a ad that gets mentioned that this is brought to you by Popover Cigarettes, which we will talk about later. And then it goes into this awesome instrumental number that includes a lot of jazzy elements as well as explosions and strange machine-like sounds to echo the state of the world that we are stepping into. It's really cool. Second song is New Albion 5. The New Albion songs are always used as kind of a blanket, here's what New Albion looks like in the era that we're stepping into right now. As we saw before with the dolls, they had one for each act. So this is the next era of New Albion, and here's the things that we learn about it. Now, New Albion has been going through a 10-year-long civil war. And we know that it is going to end with the Battle of Criers Boulevard, which is the focus of this broadcast, and the featured family is the O'Briens. We also have a return of the New Albion musical motif, and it fucking slaps. I really love how Paul's musical motifs transform with time. They'll just like make little changes to fit with the time period that we're in. It also shows how things are changing, but certain aspects stay the same. It's really cool. So, this one is a little different, but it's still the New Albion song. We are also told that the Civil War was started by Soldier 7285, the same one from the end of Dolls of New Albion from Act 4. And I love the fact that he managed to start a fucking war by planting a truth serum in the water of the local parliament. And I just, sometimes, in our modern day, I can't help but kind of think about what would happen if that was an actual option and that happened in our own world. Can you just imagine if all of our politicians were not able to lie anymore? Some other things that we learned, because we always end up getting some side stuff. We have a union of spies run by the cigarette girl, who will show up in Katie Shaw. A gang of children who make deliveries across the warring districts, run by a red-haired boy. And red hair is often linked to the mafia gang, referred to from Dolls. It also comes up in The Room Beneath New Albion, which is a fourth story in this set that we'll get to later. We're introduced to a sandy rust from some of the underground generators that is growing in popularity as a new kind of drug, but only 3 albinos know how to get it. This sandy rust drug comes up a lot in later stories and becomes super important. And then the 3 albinos is kind of a reference to the albino tribe, who will also come up quite a bit in The Room Beneath New Albion and the Fairy Punk and the Fairy Punk trilogy, excuse me. The next song is The Green Room Pale, which introduces us to John O'Brien. Now, with the introduction stuff out of the way, we get to actually meet our first character, John O'Brien, in his song The Green Room Pale. So we find that this man is kept in an underground bunker with 2 mannequins who have TV screens for heads. When not on duty, they play videos of people from John's past, including his daughter, who he abandoned and has a lot of regret about. It's not stated outright that this is his daughter, but I've always imagined it is, and it makes sense for stuff that happens later on in the story. He only ever leaves when summoned for battle, and there's actually a good Matrix reference, and I don't know if it's actually meant to reference the Matrix, but it feels like it, where he takes a red pill if he is being summoned for duty, and he takes a blue pill for when he's in the room, keeping him calm. Now, John is the one survivor of the super soldier program initiated and run by the local government. His body has been torn apart and welded back together into a mix of machine and flesh. He is an Ubermensch. The song itself is deeply sobering and melancholy. It's really soaking in how miserable John's life is and what his day-to-day looks like. Like I said, he shouldn't really look like this right now, but I could not find the time or the gumption to make him look more like what he's supposed to look like. So here's what he looks like on the album cover. He's really supposed to be really torn apart and fucked up and covered in metal and just unrecognizable. The next song is The Pitch, and this is one of my favorites on the album. We flash back to a few years ago. John is a normal man still. He is drinking his life away at a nearby pub when someone from the government approaches him with a proposition. It's very Deadpool 2016. You should not trust this guy. And this guy's just like, we will fix all your problems with human experimentation and you'll end up stronger than ever. Don't worry about it. He makes sure to mention that John's wife was recently killed by a rebel bomb, really kind of fueling John's feelings on this issue. And the song itself is so upbeat and sales pitch. It's really wonderful. The other thing that gets brought up in this is the idea of the Ubermensch, which I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. It is a German word, literally means Superman or Overman, although man is being used in more of a gender-neutral way in this. It was created by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, and the idea seems to be based around seeking a higher state of being human, more about enlightenment through intellect and physical well-being, rather than the supremacist superiority angle that the Nazi Party would later apply and adapt. I may be wrong in this interpretation. Philosophy is often kind of hard to understand, and I was only able to really get a cursory glance. It is also prone to subjectivity, I feel like. But Dieselpunk seems to be pulling from this moment in history. Also, I'll make sure to put a link to Kyle Kalgren's video on the Ubermensch in relation to Superman, the superhero character. It's really good and worth your time. Our next song is Daddy Left, which this is our first interiority song. In reality, it's a backstory song, but I feel like it's more about diving into the character's interiority more than anything else. Shapiro does these a lot. They're a strength in his work and his characterization, and I feel like it's how you're able to get so attached to these people in such a short time. Essentially, we spend a song diving into the interiority of a character, the nooks and crannies of their psyche, and why they make the choices that they do. I really like how direct this is, while still giving plenty to dig deeper into and to chew on. What is in John's psyche right now? As I mentioned, he left his daughter because he was so consumed by grief and rage at the death of his wife, but now all of that fire that he had has faded into nothing but regret at leaving her and for all of the deaths that he has caused. He wishes he could fix things, but thinks he has done too much to ever be forgiven, and he is just going to rot in this cell for the rest of his life. Some of the lyrics from this song that I think really drives this home is,
I wish for your forgiveness. I wish the past was different. I wish I would have known. I wish for stars and sails, pipe dreams and fairy tales, but atonement time has flown. And if somewhere you hate me, and your memories of me faded, and resentment's all you know, you could take some consolation at the sad end of his days. Daddy will die all alone. Daddy will die all alone.
He's like, believes that his daughter hates him, and he is okay with that. And he's like, if it gives you some consolation knowing that I'm gonna die all alone, that's what's gonna happen. It's also, the emotional performance of the song is so fucking good. I cry if I let myself feel it too much. Now comes the operation. We're diving into the plot line here. So, why is it a one? Whatever. So, John is summoned for duty for a very important operation, which will become the Battle of Criers Boulevard. As mentioned, we already know that this is going to end the war, so super important. John starts singing his murder motif, which is "Wait in the night," and the "in the fire." That's his, like, murder motif. Like, he's about to do some more crimes, is when that comes up. Now, this plan hinges on John the super soldier in order to succeed. His orders and all of the soldiers that he's leading are to kill everyone on sight. So they murder their way to a room where John bursts in on his own. There are 3 unarmed people inside. John aims his gun at the woman first because she screamed, and then he freezes and stares at her for a long moment. He sings the lullaby from the mannequin screens in his green room, and after a pause, the woman just says, "Daddy?" Yeah, it's his daughter. So John reloads his weapon, he turns around, and he starts killing the entire platoon he had been leading a moment ago in order to save and protect his daughter. It's awesome. It also includes one of my favorite lines in all of Paul's work, which is even the walking damned defend their lamps. It just encapsulates John's character and this moment so well, and it's so good. I love it. Act 2, Constance O'Brien, the Thief. By the way, these little, like, secondary titles are not actually part of the act's names. It's just stuff that I added. Now we get to meet Constance, starting with the first song on Act 2, The Thief, sung by Lloyd, actually. This opens with another pop-over cigarette ad. Not too important, but it's kind of fun that it's there and kind of silly. And we get to meet Constance. Constance actually first appears as part of the radio show. She is welcomed on by Lloyd, and he's like, hey, so what character are you going to be performing for us tonight? So she's actually, like, part of the radio show at the beginning. There's some question on whether or not she is aware of it, though, which will come up later. She mentions that she's going to get into character real quick, and she is going to be Inanna, the mysterious thief, who is a low-class woman who steals from the upper class, using her beauty and charm to get close to her targets. Very femme fatale classic archetype. But she also has this personal agenda where she will work for divorced women of the upper class who lose all of their power and income if their husbands leave them. Very Robin Hood type situation. And that's what the song is. It just kind of covers that is Constance / Inanna, and that's her thing. Discussion number 1. These are just short little segments where I think we usually just see Constance and Thomas talking. And it just gives us a little bit of context to what's happening. So Constance / Inanna has been hired to steal a mysterious little case from a man at this big party that's happening, with her boyfriend, Thomas, working as a waiter during the heist. This is intended to be their final job, as it will pay enough for the two of them to skip town and start a new life out on the coast. We get the soiree, which is a big party number. It's very jazzy, very fun. A little bit of the Radio Hour musical theme is in it, which is fun. And there's some conversation bites between Constance and her target that I find super interesting. They're very short, but they're fun to dig into. First of all, he offers her a pop-over cigarette, which is kind of funny. He then asks about her father. He's like, hey, do you mind if I ask him to court you? And she's like, he's probably dead, which we know is not true, but she doesn't know that. And then he makes a direct reference to Elysium, which, if you haven't watched my Dolls video or don't know about Dolls, Elysium is extremely important. It is New Albion's, one of New Albion, how do I put it? It is an afterlife that New Albion is aware of, and it causes problems. Also, I honestly kind of love how much of a twat this man is, despite only being here for 3 conversations. And then we get the bust. This is going to be several slides because so much happens in this 8-minute and 22-second song. So let's just go straight into it. With the previous song, it was all about Constance working the heist and getting close to her target. So she successfully steals the MacGuffin, but while she's in the bathroom, the police burst in on the scene. This gives us the police music motif, which shows up a lot, which is the "On the day we come, it's over." This was first introduced to us in Dolls by Soldier 7285. It is another thing that transforms as the city itself transformed, but it always clues you into this being used for some kind of organized force bursting into a scene. The police immediately announce that the man Constance just stole from is a rebel, and they shoot him then and there. He's dead. Also, they are looking for a special device and know that a thief has been hired to steal it. However, Constance manages to escape before they find her, leaving Thomas behind. So while Constance is running, she is found and picked up by her aunt, Jackie O'Brien, seen here. Jackie is the person who raised Constance after she was orphaned. I imagine she is John's younger sister, but that's never established. She just feels like she should be John's younger sister. There's something about it. I don't know why. As Jackie drives Constance away, she's like, hey girlie, we have some little family secrets we need to spill. Also, her voice is incredible. It's smooth and low and delicious. It's just really good for like a jazzy situation, a jazzy number and song and setting. So let's go over some of these little family secrets that get divulged. First of all, Jackie now knows that Constance is the thief in Nana because Jackie herself is a member of the Resistance who hired her to steal the device in the first place, which she says is called the MCG. Jackie also confesses that she is a voodoo punk, calling it a religion and a cult, which is very different from the alternative political party we know it as in Dolls Act 3. So voodoo punk has really changed since then. Also, at the mention of the voodoo punks, there's this little do-do-do-do jingle that plays, which is a really cool detail in reference to the voodoo punks' Dolly theme. As they're talking, Jackie is like, "Hey girlie, the police are after you. We need to get you underground stat. Also, please deliver that little device to my resistance buddy while you're down there. Thank you." And Constance is like, yeah, but what about my boyfriend? Maybe I could trade this thing for his life. I care about that a lot more." Jackie's like, no, we need to win the war and do not have time to worry about your stupid boyfriend. To which Constance is not happy and she leaves. She runs back to her place to find Thomas there waiting for her, safe and sound. She also, as she's running, she's saying all these lyrics, and there's a great reference to the Sword of Damocles, which I wanted to mention. So as they reunite, Constance is like, "Thank goodness, I'm so happy you're safe, but how did you escape?" And Thomas goes, "Don't worry about it. Do you still have the MacGuffin, though?" Constance says, "Yes, of course I do. Now let's leave this town." And Thomas quietly sings,
"And on the day we come, it's over. I can help you if you just stay calm. There's bigger things here than you realize. I'm sorry, but this must be done. And on this day, the party's over. It's time to wake up. There's a war to win. If you run, these men will shoot you.
This isn't real, this isn't happening. When did they turn you? How long since?
Just take my hand, I'll help you live."
She is very upset, understandably. The drama is running high. Thomas is there with a squad of cops telling Constance that they're gonna kill her if she runs, but he can protect her if she surrenders. Constance is absolutely heartbroken and she runs away anyway, somehow managing to avoid getting shot and escape the cops once more. She's very good at her job. You also might notice a particular story theme of running away at this point, similar to how John initially ran away from his problems to try dealing with his rage and grief. It is a theme that comes up more later, too. That finally ends the bust. It's a very long song. There's a lot that happens in it, which brings us to the underground. Lloyd narrates, saying, "And so, hunted and devoid of options, Constance heads to the tunnels beneath the city. We hear footsteps running and some men shouting to get the dogs down here." Now, dogs come up a lot in these stories. I'll talk about this more later. They are important. And the chorus sings about the underground, conveying a sense of mystery to this place, a place for people to get lost and strange things to be found. These will later be referred to as the tunnels. They are another important part of New Albion's overall magic weirdness. Things that are specifically mentioned that will show up or can be seen as references to other things in New Albion are tribes, which I think refers to the albino tribe. There's sailors. The afterlife is often referenced in terms of the ocean shore, so I thought that was a neat little connection. There's lost gods, which will come up in fairy punk, and of course fairies, which will also come up in fairy punk, and a couple other things too. They also say the line, "The cults who've fled call forth the dead," referring to the voodoo punks who are going to be coming up soon. And in the middle of the song, we hear Constance sobbing as she travels through these tunnels, and then we get this amazing moment.
And so, stumbling through the dark labyrinths beneath the city, Constance
Wait, you...
finds herself pursued by...
Don't I know you?
No, shh, don't break character.
No. There was like a radio broadcast.
Another life in another world, dear.
Who are you?
Whoever the story needs me to be. Now come, let's slip back into character. Shh.
This moment was the moment I became hooked on this series. It's just so eerie and unnerving, and it brings up so many questions about what is happening and who Lloyd actually is. The way Lloyd shushes and coaxes Constance, quote, back into character is just so ominous, and there's a super subtle warping of the audio right before Lloyd talks, which I think is the sound of him entering into the scene to continue narrating. But this part also makes the narrator a flawed character in the story and not just an unquestionable story device, which is what we're used to narrators being. It's really cool. Now we get to The Wasteland, which is Constance's interiority song, aka Tragic Backstory. After losing her parents, Constance spent her teenage years getting wasted with her friends, including a girl named Katie. Katie actually gets her own story, as I mentioned, Katie Shaw, and album way later, so we'll get to her later. And we learned that Katie's mom is the reason that Constance became a thief after she saw the poor woman get divorced and abandoned completely by her husband, and there was nothing that Constance could do to help. So she decided that she needed to pull herself up out of her drunken stupor and try doing something. She also mentions her father, and this kind of shows us that she sees her father as someone who inspires her to keep going and to be a fighter, and I think that's really endearing considering that John believes that Constance hates him, and obviously that's not true. There's also a reference to the Ring Around the Roses through the chorus where, in the wasteland where the ashes all fall down from worlds that could never stand. I just think that's cool. And there's a direct line from John's song, Daddy Left, showing how connected these two characters still are. The discussion, too, where Thomas finds Constance somewhere in the tunnels, and Constance is like, "Boyo, what the fuck did they offer you? How long were you planning on betraying me?" And he's like, "I was always an undercover cop, so it's nothing personal. Sacrifices must be made," and the theme of sacrifice was a big one in Dolls, so I feel like that's important to note. But he's like, "I still love you, baby. Do you want to pop over and chill later?" He's like, "After this is all done, we can just go and be happy together. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "Bitch, say what? You broke my heart. How could you?" Now, in the distance, they hear singing, and Thomas realizes the voodoo punks are coming. Thomas is rightfully concerned about getting captured by the voodoo punks, which happens immediately. Jackie arrives with them, and she is not happy about the whole him breaking Constance's heart thing, but I'm sure that's gonna be fine. Now we get the voodoo punks. This is, fun fact, my spouse's favorite song on this album. They're not big into Paul's stuff at all, but I have, of course, made them listen to a couple things, and this is one of them. That Voodoo Punks theme comes back, the Dale, oh, oh, we come, Dale, as well as Dale, Dale, oh, oh. It's the Voodoo Punk stuff. So the voodoo punks are able to use music/chanting to summon what they believe are spirits from Elysium, again, the main afterlife of the setting, to possess a targeted person. In this case, that person is going to be the policeman, Thomas. Note, these rituals seem to allow the person possessed to know and become lost in songs of the dead. Songs that they've never heard of before. So after the voodoo punks do some of their possession songs on her ex-boyfriend, they finally lead Constance to the substation to deliver the MCG. She gets there and she's like, y'all, take the stupid thing. It has brought me nothing but badness, and pay me so I can go to sleep for a week and get over my newfound regrets. Thank you. But suddenly the door breaks open and we hear an instrumentation of the police theme, the burr, 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 as the government's one super soldier busts into the room. Yeah, this is the part where Act 1 intersects with Act 2. The soldier sings the lullaby to her and she realizes it is her father, John O'Brien. And this is also where Act 2 ends. Bringing us to Act 3, the Battle of Criers Boulevard. And this is also where things start doing a lot more jumping back and forth in time, so keep with me. I'm honestly impressed that you're sticking with me this long. The first song of Act 3 is a pretty short song called Waiting. It opens with a much more somber pop-over cigarette commercial from Lloyd. It's still kind of funny to be honest. It's just so, how do I put it? So how do I put it? Like, it's so silly to talk about pop-over cigarettes and this thing as being more important or as important as everything else going on, if that makes sense. It does also mention that popover is a Chinese thing, which makes it seem like it seems to be inspired by or similar to opium. And then the audio narrows in on the substation hours after Acts 1 and 2, where Jackie and the captured policeman Thomas sit and wait and make conversation as they are waiting for news from the surface to find out what happened with the voodoo punks and their plan with the MCG. This is where we get the most that we will ever get about Thomas's backstory and his life. The things that we learn just from these little snippets is that his father, quote, bought the farm and left the city. His parents seemed to be performers of some kind who stopped after a certain point after this move, which seemed to also trigger the, how do I put it, the break in their family. He mentions that he remembers his mother trying to be silent as she cried, and it was this that made him decide to be a policeman. It seems to imply that his father was abusive to his mom, and he wanted to try to stop that kind of thing from happening in the world. He also then asked Jackie, "Have you ever been in love?" This leads us into Jackie's backstory song / interiority song, The Best of Times. And Jackie talks about how she and a girl named Dorothy fell in love when they were younger, presumably before the war started or before it got really bad. Alongside their love, there's also parties and community and happy memories. So there's really a connection between this love that she used to have and better times. She says that it was before the purges started. With the war, Dorothy unfortunately was taken, and Jackie didn't see her again until years later.
Years passed, but then I saw her again, sewing clothes in a room without fans. She didn't know me, she couldn't, you see, in her eyes something missed. There's a trick with a pick, the doctor gives it a nick, it makes you dose out real quick. The hours stop, the days unwind, moments pass, memories sigh, but have passed the best of times.
And that's all we really get about what happened to Dorothy. As far as we can tell, she's either dead. I always thought that she had gotten overdosed for the longest time, but I've actually been thinking about it some more with working on this project, and there's no guarantee that Dorothy is dead. So she might just be drugged up and just unaware of anything around her and existing like that for the rest of her life. And that's so much sadder. Oh my gosh. Just let me cry for a minute. Ah! Honestly, this song is really beautiful. And another one of my favorites on this album. It has this daydream quality to it. And the way it's carried by the piano accompaniment, which almost lulls alongside the singer, like both of them are pulling against time itself to try to slow down. It's so bittersweet and melancholy, and it makes me cry. Moving on, though. After Jackie divulges her heartbreak, they do get some word from the radio that they were waiting on, and it's just a man saying to run. That if there's anyone still out there, run if you can. And that's not a good sign. Jackie hears that message and she's like, okay, we need to go upstairs and see what the fuck happened instead of running away. Lloyd, meanwhile, acting as the narrator, is like, and then Jackie gives Thomas to the voodoo punks to be executed. To which Jackie says, no, I am not doing that. Lloyd honestly gets really pissy about this, and he's like, come on, but Jackie, and Jackie's like, too fucking bad, I'm just gonna take him upstairs with me. He's not a bad kid, he's just a little misguided. Now, the thing about this moment is that Jackie arguing with Lloyd is just another crazy section where the control that the narrator has on the story is shown to be incomplete, and it's awesome. We also learn that Thomas has no memory of the voodoo punks using him as a momentary spirit Airbnb. Jackie's like, yeah, we've used him enough, and Thomas is like, use me for what, ma'am? So as they are heading upstairs, Lloyd takes us back a few hours to the beginning of the Battle of Criers Boulevard, where Acts 1 and 2 had initially ended with John acting as a surprise one-man army against the government that created him in the first place. Bringing us to Blood Red Dogs. Remember how I said that dogs are important and have a very specific symbol or symbolism? They are a symbol for a certain thing. They represent a certain thing. Yeah, so they represent violence, battle, and carnage. And Blood Red Dogs is the introduction of this specific music motif. It is different from the police motif. During the battle, Jackie and the voodoo punks use the MCG to broadcast a possessed Thomas as he sings the Dolly theme to all of the government soldiers, and the soldiers gradually lose themselves to the song as well, practically hypnotized into this spell placed upon them. As this is happening, one of the commanders is super pissed and constantly yelling into the mic for everyone to keep fighting. He specifically mentions that the MCG is powerful but buggy as hell. As you listen to the song, more and more of his people are overtaken by the spell until he himself also starts singing against his will, further broadcasting it to more and more people through his own microphone. The spell soon spreads to civilians and overtakes the entire city until everyone is trapped where they stand, singing a song they have never heard before. This is another song where the way the story is shown through the music itself is just so good. The part where the commander is screaming and threatening is awesome because you hear the Blood Red Dogs theme of the soldiers getting quieter and quieter and overtaken by the Dolly theme getting louder. Oh, and it gets bigger and bigger and louder until even the commander himself can't fight it. It really feels like a virus spreading from person to person, and it's awesome. We then get to the song Reunion, where all of our main characters finally get reunited. Jackie and Thomas return to the surface to find everyone swaying mindlessly as they softly sing the Dolly song, except for John and Constance, the only people not under the spell. I will say Reunion is another song that makes me cry. The part of the song that really hits me is John and Jackie's reunion specifically. It's the first time that these two siblings have seen each other in years, and they could be very different people and react to each other differently. But I just love how the lyrics kind of encapsulate their relationship. It's really subtle and beautiful, so I'm just going to go over some of the lyrics. The main one is, "We never call on birthdays." Just kind of acknowledging that neither of them were people who would really reach out to each other for things like birthdays. And both of them saying that you lost her and I'm so sorry. But also that you were always kind in the darkest of times. They obviously still care about each other despite the fact that they were never close and also didn't have a very warm relationship, but there's still care there, and that's kind of the things that hits me. Meanwhile, Thomas and Constance also make amends real quick, and Jackie realizes that she and Thomas are immune to the spell that currently surrounds them because they've been possessed before, and John has been so reconstructed that it doesn't seem to affect him. But she doesn't understand how Constance is safe. There's no clear reason for that. As John, Jackie, and Thomas conclude that the city is doomed and they should just run away, there's that theme again, Constance actually approaches one of the people under the spell and tells them to listen as she starts singing a new song. In this part, Jackie has also noted that there's something about Constance that is different, some kind of light in her eyes if she knows or understands something which is protecting her from the spell. Constance says a specific line of stories within stories, and I think she comes up with that idea, or at least I feel like she gets that idea and that kind of epiphany from her moment with Lloyd when she was down in the tunnels. That's my theory anyway, that's what I feel like. Oh no! I just fed my dog, so you might hear food crunching noises for a minute. Now, Storyville Station is the song that Constance sings to the person that she walked up to. Spoiler alert, it does break the spell, but there's other things I want to talk about about the song. In an interview that I once listened to, Paul said that some of his musicals are influenced by specific belief systems, specifically this trilogy of Dolls, Dieselpunk, and Atompunk. He claimed that Dolls is supposed to be kind of related to influenced by Christianity, Dieselpunk is Buddhism, and Atompunk is atheism. I can say it, I swear. Note, these seem to appear thematically as far as I can tell, and I am not an expert on any of these belief systems. So this song that Constance sings is all about rebirth and living multiple lives, very similar to the concept of reincarnation. Also, that strange twinkle in her eye and her newfound wisdom feels akin to the idea of enlightenment. The chorus of the song compels the listener to be in the here and now, and while mindfulness is not strictly a Buddhist thing, it is a very common practice within it. And I just think it's kind of cool how these things come up in this song, because otherwise I kind of just feel like the song is just, it's pretty, I like the lyrics, but it kind of feels a little out of place to the plot that's happening. I also wanted to mention that the song has a lot of really great meta references to being in a musical / play. You know, Constance says where the players are cast before they've awakened, where everyone's wishing and the plays eat the players. I love that one. It reminds me so much of Lost Hollow. And of course, the pages fall, the girl transcends, the life that's lived just in your head, the show, the role she was lost within, the opera she thought she starred in. And of course, all of these are called operas. So anytime that something is really overt in the story that references the thing that we're listening to, I always think it's really cool and I pay a lot of attention to it. It's kind of similar to when I was taking a poetry workshop last semester, and my teacher said that anytime, not the workshop, it was a poetry class, it doesn't matter, but my teacher mentioned that anytime that a poet talks about poetry, you need to pause and listen. It's there for a reason, and it feels very similar to this part here. We get to the finale! Almost done. So Lloyd is pissed at the situation. He hates this whole idea that Constance's song can just save the day because he wants this city to fucking die. He wants it ruined, and he is so delightfully mad, it's honestly really funny, that they're trying to save it. He and Jackie argue again, Lloyd claiming that the tragic downfall of New Albion would be a story told for generations, and it would just be a better story, and this whole situation is stupid. I'm gonna confess, I love Lloyd. I love how mad he is. Now, Jackie states that nobody wants that, and besides, the most striking tragedies are always the most intimate ones. Which was a mistake. That was the wrong thing to say. Why was that the wrong thing to say, you may ask? Well, Lloyd takes Jackie's advice and decides to narrate that the soldiers waking from their trance will immediately recognize and kill Constance, aka Inanna, the very infamous thief. Jackie tells John that they're going to kill her, and he's like, no, they're not. John promises to keep the soldiers at bay while the others escape. He tells Constance how happy he is to be able to be here for her and to be her father and for the day that they had together. He is happy, and he is going to die like with no regrets because of the one day they had. It's very sweet. Meanwhile, the blood red dogs theme starts hammering in as the soldiers wake and prepare to attack. Thomas and Constance leave together, agreeing to give each other another try. I don't really care about it that much, I'm gonna be honest. But Jackie stays behind to fight with John. Jackie sings the line, I always hated birthdays. And John's like, why have you not fled to safety? And Jackie says, I'm staying with you because you are my blood, and I'm not gonna leave you to die alone. She unfortunately immediately gets shot. And as Jackie lays there dying, I imagine John is holding her as he hears her final words.
I wish for your forgiveness. I wish the past was different. I wish I would have known.
I wish for stars and sails, pipe dreams and fairy tales, but atonement time has flown.
There's just so much sadness and regret, and yet they are still there for each other, and it just hurts. And so after Jackie dies in his arms, the really stupid soldiers are like, John O'Brien, surrender. And John is like, I'm gonna kill all of you. He uses everything he has to utterly destroy the local army, dying in the process and ending the war. And once more, I gotta give a shout out to the emotional performance of this part, especially the beginning of the In the Fire motif. It's so quiet with fury, and then it just explodes as he is raging across this boulevard, I assume. So what does New Albion look like after all that? The Battle of Criers Boulevard, of course, ends the war. The remaining rebels overtake Parliament, but turn on each other, so there is no current government at all. Some of the people saved by Constance's song just dropped their weapons, left the city, and now you can, quote, hear bells ringing in the west, which I think is supposed to be a monastery, and they go become monks. I think that's what happened, but I'm not positive. Constance actually fought to change the laws for women in upper class until she won, and now the women there don't have to worry about getting divorced and then having nothing and being thrown into squalor. Then she and Thomas just left the city. The city is still tense and pretty divided, but for the moment there is peace of a kind, and the voodoo punks have returned to the city, coming up from underground and no longer in hiding, which I'm sure is not going to be a problem for New Albion. Yeah, who can say if this is good or bad? I know if it's good or bad. It's not good. But that is the end of the Dieselpunk opera. Yay, we made it. There's still some more stuff to talk about, though, because we have the podcast, aka Why is Lloyd Like That? The full title of the podcast is The New Albion Radio Hour Presents Astonishing Tales of the Highly Improbable. As I said, it's a podcast presented as an in-universe radio program, the same radio program that presents Dieselpunk, the New Albion Radio Hour. The podcast itself mainly includes stories about the greater metaverse that Paul hasn't been able to tell in other ways yet, and we'll hopefully get to those in the future, because they do become important. If you want more information, you don't have to have them, but it is cool for lore. For this video, it's just the framing device heard in the intros and outros of the podcast that we care about. For the podcast, the host is still Lloyd Allen. He is in fact the person who forms the New Albion Radio Hour in the first place. So why does he do this? Due to an accident, Lloyd lost his real body and somehow got pulled into a doll. This also unfortunately separated him from everyone he cares about, including his boyfriend Raven. Being in a doll's body, Lloyd's powers as a post-human have been severely limited, meaning he has not been able to leave this specific reality and narrative and is essentially stranded in New Albion. He is trying to use the radio to build up his powers, essentially, since post-human powers are all centered around narrative influence and storytelling. Lloyd is very upset about his situation. Throughout the podcast, we actually listen to him as he goes through the 5 stages of grief, which are terribly hilarious to listen to. We also hear him making plans leading up to the Dieselpunk album, including meeting and working with Jackie and the Voodoo Punks, much to his dismay as he thinks they're all useless idiots. As his plans fall through in just the outros and intros of the podcast, he eventually gets so angry that he decides to use the abilities he still has to simply destroy the entire city of New Albion. He's like, fuck this town, I'm gonna burn it. And this final burn everything to the ground plan is what we hear in the Dieselpunk opera. That is his attempt to achieve this goal. Now, what about the ads? Because I said I would talk about them, and we're going to talk about them now. Both Dieselpunk and the podcast include in-universe commercial ads for various things, like cigarettes, mattresses, ferns, bookstore, etc. These are here to better convince the narrative, the story's reality, which is kind of a living being, kind of not, that this quote-unquote radio show is real, and it is an acceptable part of the world. It is a kind of detail that gives Lloyd more sway on the narrative by being more convincing. What I find the most fascinating about this is that it is only ever implied. It's never explained how these things work, but there's enough information there for one to be able to piece it together. Another reason for the ads is that they're just pretty funny, and sometimes it can be as simple as that. And with that, that is the end of the PowerPoint. I am never going to make a PowerPoint for a video ever again, because this did not work, but that's okay. Cool. If you have made it to this part, then I would encourage you to go listen to the Dieselpunk opera. I have a feeling most of the people already have who've watched this, but if you are someone who hasn't, I would encourage to go listen to it. These videos are kind of meant to explain what happens because it's a little hard, I think, the first couple times you listen to have all the pieces and be able to understand the whole story, right? As I said a moment ago and at the start of this video, this took way longer than I wanted it to, and I think making a PowerPoint was the wrong move. I'm never doing that again. That was silly, but now I know. We learn things. We move on. This does mean that the next one will look really different again. I'm actually thinking maybe I can record a time lapse of full scenes from the musical I'm talking about, or maybe do some really simple storyboards, or maybe a mix of both. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. As for the next Shapera video, anyone who already knows his work will guess that Atom Punk is next, and it probably will be. But I've also been wanting to make a video on the Slenderman musical as a Halloween special for years now, so I might make that one first. I'm honestly not sure. It kind of depends on how college goes and what I feel like working on. Also, if you like my art, consider sticking around, as it is the main focus of this channel and the other things that I make. Finally, thank you for watching to the end. I can't believe you're still here. That's super awesome. If you liked this video, comment, like, subscribe, all the YouTube things. If you feel like it, you don't have to. There is also a link to my Blue Sky account, which is the only social media I have, down in the description. I hope you have a wonderful day, week, whatever, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Okay, little guys. Go on. Be free. Much better space. Go that way. Go, frogs. Okay. Still one.